gonna get really great off-market deals, then you're gonna have to talk to sellers. But as a rental property investor, what are the most important pieces of information that you need to obtain when you're on the phone? And then how do you get comfortable talking to sellers so that you don't come off as a sweaty, nervous wreck when you're on the phone? I'm about to share the tips that I use when I talk to sellers, as well as the 4 most critical pieces of information you need to obtain when you're on the phone. I'm Kirby Atwell from Living Off Rentals, where we believe that high quality rental properties are the best investment a person can make. So you put out your marketing and you're starting to get some calls from motivated sellers, and you're about to pick up the phone and you're starting to feel a little nervous. That's natural. You don't know what to say, you don't know what questions to ask, and ultimately you don't want to blow a deal that could end up being tens of thousands of dollars in cash flow or equity. If this sounds familiar, let me know in the comments below. Over the last decade, I've talked to many sellers, and I've figured out a few things that have led to winning a lot more deals. And I want to share those with you today so that, number 1, you feel a lot more comfortable when you talk to sellers on the phone, and number 2, you don't spend all this time chasing around leads that really weren't deals from the start, and you could have known that if you asked a few pieces of critical information up front. Also, at the end of this video, I'm going to share with you how to get access to a bonus resource that will make this entire process much easier. All right, so first off, how to ease your nerves so that you feel comfortable on the phone. So this has way more to do with who you are as a person and how you're approaching the seller than most people think. If you're not a good person to start with, this video isn't gonna help you. I can't do anything to help you. Just turn off the video, search for how to be a better person or how to raise your ethics level, because that's really where you've got to start. You're sort of missing the fundamental requirements to have sustained success in this or any business. And so you might score a deal here or there, but you're approaching it from the wrong mindset. And this is so critically important to start with before you start talking to sellers, and it makes the conversation much easier. So assuming that you're a good person and that you're approaching this from the right place, then the key to making yourself substantially more comfortable on the phone is right before you're about to pick up the call, ask yourself, how can I provide a solution that is the absolute best for this person's situation? It's important to keep in mind that this person is calling you an investor and not a realtor. They don't want to sell their house like 90% of other people that sell their house. They have a problem that they need an investor to solve. They don't want to list their house. Maybe it's a hoarder house and they're embarrassed. Maybe they inherited a house and it's a mess and they live out of town. Maybe they just want to sell quickly. Maybe they're going through a divorce. There are countless reasons why somebody does not want to list their house and sell it traditionally. And so when you approach the call from how can I best solve their problem, it causes you to get curious and interested in them and their situation. Nervous people are focused on themselves. Comfortable people are focused on the other person on the other end of the line. And when you pick up the phone, treat the caller like they're a human being, like, dare I say, a friend. Do you enjoy responding to generic marketing messages that obviously it's a stock image and there's no personality behind it? It's some marketing message that a professional marketer put together. And when you call a business, do you like it when a robot picks up and they say, press 1 for this and press 2 for that? Or do you like it when somebody answers and says, hey, this is Kirby from Green Vet Homes. How can I help you? And do you like it when somebody's reading verbatim off a script when you're talking to them? They're not interested in what you're saying. They're just looking for the response. If you say X, I need to read Y. No, you hate that because you're a human being, and so does every other human being on this planet. Before you pick up the phone, think, this is a friend of mine with a problem that I can help solve. The numbers obviously have to make sense, but you're going to use all the skill, all the knowledge, all the time you spent watching videos like this to help solve their problem, and thereby you're going to get a lot more deals. It also helps to have an outline that kind of guides the conversation. I'm not talking about canned responses that you read verbatim, but I'm just talking about something that will guide the conversation, because what you'll realize is that many of these conversations go the same way, caller after caller. And finally, take comfort knowing that if the seller is motivated enough, they're not gonna let you screw this up. Your conversion rate's gonna improve over time, but having the right sellers call you is half the battle. This psychology component is very, very important. And a lot of people might say, yeah, I've got it. Let's move on to the critical pieces of information that I need to be asking a seller. But I'm telling you, if you can come from the right place and approach a seller from that place where I'm going to solve their problem, as opposed to most of the competition out there who thinks this is a war and I've got to conquer the seller and take everything I can, you're going to be so much more successful. I promise you. It feels counterintuitive, but I'm telling you, that's the way this works. All right, so now getting to the 4 pieces of critical information that you need to ask when you're on the phone with the seller for the first time. So the first one is the seller's motivation level. Like I mentioned, if a seller is motivated, you can typically find a solution that works for both of you, and you can turn that property into a deal. So you're gonna ask them questions like, why are you selling? What are you gonna do after you sell? What's most important to you in the selling process, and how quickly do you want to close? And if you hear responses like, I'm gonna sell a year from now, and I'm just getting 50 bids right now, and my house is in perfect condition, and I just want top dollar for my house, then you know that you can just refer that lead over to a realtor friend of yours, and they can list that property for them, because it's probably not going to be something that you can help them with. And by the way, have a good referral partner in a realtor so that you can refer leads to them that make more sense for listing, and they can refer leads to you that make more sense for an investor to purchase. The second piece of critical information that you want to get on the phone is one that a lot of investors don't agree on. They think you should get this when you're in person, and that's a possibility, but I always recommend getting the price range that the seller wants when you're talking to them on the phone. This is going to dictate whether you want to move forward with pursuing this lead, because they might be way off in left field from what is really what the property should sell for to an investor. It's tempting to lead off with this question because you just want to know what they want for the property. I get it. But start with their story, understand why they're selling, understand their motivation level, and understand, how you think you can help them, and build some rapport with the seller. I always recommend that before you ask them, what their price range is. And then I just simply ask them. I say, what are you looking to sell for your property? And 60% of the time, the answer, they're gonna tell you what they want for their property. They're gonna give you an answer. The other 40% of the time, it's always gonna be the same response. It's, you tell me, what do you think it's worth? And that's fine. I get where they're coming from, but you're gonna spend a lot of time, if you accept that answer, you're gonna spend a lot of time analyzing a lot of deals that you never were even close on to start with. So anytime I get that response of, you just give me an offer, then I say, got it. I understand you don't want to give me a price, but I also don't want to waste your time. So is there a price range that you would take? Are you thinking from this amount to this amount? And a lot of times they'll say, yeah, I'm thinking this price range, and you'll get it. But if not, sometimes they'll say, no, there's no price range. I can't give you a price range. Then I ask one more question. It's just sort of reframing the question to eventually get an idea of what they're asking for this property. And so at that point I say, okay, is there a price you wouldn't take for the property? And so then if they say, I would never take under $200,000, okay, if I have to be at 150, this might not work. Or if I have to be at 100, definitely not going to work, and I'll just refer this over to a realtor who can potentially list this property. And finally, if they're like the 1% of people that just will not give you a price, then say, okay, I get it. You don't want to give me a price. How about you do some research on your end for what you're looking for this property? I'll do some research on my end, and we'll reconnect, and we'll talk about a price that might make sense. The third piece of critical information that you need to get when you're talking to the seller on the phone is one that a lot of people think you can't get in a phone conversation, and that is the condition of the property. Many people think you need to visit the property and take pictures to figure out the condition. And inevitably, when you ask this question, is there anything that needs to be fixed on your property? A lot of people will say, no, my property is in perfect condition. And you say, excellent. So then you need to dig a little deeper. Then you ask, okay, well, when was the roof last replaced? Is the electrical and plumbing system, is that original to the house, or has that been upgraded recently? When did you last replace the furnace? So you can dig a little bit deeper, and you can start to figure out, the type of condition, just to get a real rough estimate, so you can run some numbers and figure out, is this a lead that I want to spend the time going out to, or does it not make sense right from the start? All right, so the last thing to do before you get off the phone with the seller, and it's something a lot of people forget about, and that is to set the appointment to see the property at a convenient time that works for the seller. And this can feel a little strange to set this appointment now because you haven't done any research on the property and you don't know if it's even one that you want to spend the time going out to, but you can always adjust later after you do your analysis. A lot of times it's very difficult to get people back on the phone or get them to commit to a time for an appointment later on. So it's just easiest to set the appointment now, maybe set it a little bit further out, maybe a few days out if you're unsure of a few things so you have some time to do some research. Now sometimes it's a property that you just know in your conversation is most likely not going to work. There's really no point in setting the appointment. What I tell the seller is, all right, look, I need to do some research based on the conversation that we just had and based on the sold comparables in your area to come up with a price range that makes sense for us. So I'll call you back within the next day or two and I'll give you a price range, and if it works for you, then we can set up the appointment. And they say, great. So then when I call them back, if I'm way off, which I expected I probably would be, I just tell them, look, I'm probably not the buyer for your property. I know you said you wanted 200,000. I can't get anywhere close to that. And so then they're gonna say, well, what would you give me? And I say, I'm probably gonna be around the 120 mark. And either they're gonna say, that's no way, like there's no way I would ever sell it for that price. Or they say, well, we're negotiable. Maybe we can meet somewhere in the middle. You know, why don't you come out anyway? And if they're negotiable, then I spend the time to go out. But if they're stuck on 200, you know you have to be at 120. Why spend the time? Spend the time on the leads that you can purchase and the people that you can help the most. Now, I mentioned at the top of the video that if you stuck around to the end, I'd tell you how to get a bonus, which is this. It's my guide to the exact script that I use when I talk to sellers. Now, honestly, I have this script memorized because I've used it so many times talking to so many sellers over the years, and you'll have it memorized soon as well. But this was critical for me in the beginning because I would inevitably talk to a seller and I'd get off the phone. If I didn't have the script in front of me, I'd forget to ask them some critical piece of information, and then I'd have to try to get them back on the phone, and it was a mess. So this is a Google Sheet. You can download it to your computer, or you can have it on your phone and fill it in. Or you can just print it off as a one-pager and just carry it with you. You can print off several copies and just fill them in as sellers call you. So it's really nice to have, and you can download it at the link that's right below this video. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't, give it the old thumbs down-a-rooski. Either way, it lets me know which videos are delivering the best value so that I can make similar ones along the same lines. Speaking of which, if there's some topic that you're interested in, please comment in the comments below and let me know what that is so that I can make a video on that topic. And finally, join me in the Living Off Rentals Facebook group where you can ask any of your questions or discuss anything rental investing related. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't, hey, give it a thumbs down-a-rooski. And if you liked this video, please give it the old thumbs up. And if not, hey, give it a whole thumbs.
What in heaven's name are you talking about?
As a continuation of this video, in an upcoming video, I'm going to be talking about the process of actually meeting with the seller at their property, doing the whole walkthrough and what's important to think about. So make sure you subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you in the next video.